How we doing, coin traders? Thanks for joining me for the show. Looking at ROSE, R-O-S-E, the Oasis Network. ROSE, R-O-S-E on that ticker. Did a video update a couple weeks ago. We did talk about this overall nice setup and bullish structure from an otherwise kind of downtrend. So finally had a nice breakout, flipped these EMAs nice and bullish. And then obviously over the last day plus the current day, very unfortunate sell-off here in the overall crypto space that kind of took out a lot of these price lows. So now, unfortunately, broke structure here once again. So going to be fighting now for ROSE to actually figure out what's going to happen. But pretty much what this does mean right now at this time is that we are looking like we have set our current mini trend high right now. And for that, looking at a price of 13.725 cents. So kind of one of the unfortunate things was just the significance of this bearish candle that closed here not too long ago. And the reason is because otherwise we were actually looking very nice of holding exponential moving average support, especially kicking off this 12-period EMA, which is the very nice first line of defense. And then with such an extreme bearish candle, was extremely unfortunate to break through the 12, the 26, and the 50 and close pretty significantly below the 50 all in one candle. And in fact, if we actually go ahead and zoom in on this candle as well, it's almost a Maribuzu candle, which pretty much means no upside wick or downside shadow. Now, obviously, a little bit of that we do see, very basically almost non-existent upside wick. And so, yeah, essentially the opening price range did reflect the close without any sort of significant price trading in between there. So a very, very unfortunate bearish candle here. And the thing that's also significant about this too is that if we look at the magnitude of how much we actually closed here, we were looking at a downside of almost 14%. And if we look at the volume, we're looking at 27.085 million. But if we actually go back here coming off of the trend high and we look at these two bearish days, there's significantly a lot more bearish volume and we still held 12-period exponential moving average. So for example, on the first day we had 44.76, the following day we had 44. So almost a combined of 85 million cryptos here for the Oasis Network ROSE here on this sell-off. And obviously after that didn't necessarily have that much bullish volume and fall through. So even on this candle, we only had 20.592. So not that much at all. And so really, despite having a candle that does look like this for now, and we are only about 4 hours into the current daily candle, the only thing that would really make this kind of change so far, given the current setup, is that if we actually see a lot of buying and actually retrace above at least the 50-period EMA and form a close on the daily candle tomorrow here. But otherwise, like we mentioned, we took out a lot of these trend lows, and we actually broke, like we said, exponential moving average support. So we're actually looking at the low for support coming off where we actually found prior to making this nice bullish move. We were looking at a low of 8.963 cents and on the current move 8.953. So actually just breaking that lower as well. So definitely hasn't been that good of a setup here, especially given this low minimal selling pressure. We know that this could actually increase as well. So we would need to see this continue to fade off and sell, but given the amount of retracement and pullback, especially since it did take so much bullish volume to get there, that right now we're not necessarily looking like the best setup so far. And that's why we do have to zoom out and actually look at how this fits the overall picture here for ROSE. Now, if we go ahead and pull up the technicals, looking at relative strength index or RSI first, and specifically want to look at where we actually ended up. So we look at the highest we got for RSI that closed, still didn't break above the 70 line. So the highest we actually did get over here was 69.92 and 69.94. From there, I actually pulled back, set a lower high, yet meanwhile, we're actually looking at higher highs in the price and the close. So a little bit of that bearish divergence here. So we were expecting a little bit of a pullback. Realistically, would have been the best case scenario to see more or less a consolidation, maintain those exponential moving average as support. And that would be the bull's best case scenario to actually see continuation. But because we actually did see a significant sell-off with the strength, and not only that, but the RSI actually falling significantly below this exponential moving average, we know that right now we are looking, and like we said, we did break structure. So this is going to be the current trend high right now, and likely in this instance, scout a lower high, and then probably see at a best case scenario if we can start to reverse the trend as well. But right now, bears are very much in control, which does obviously mean that it will take that much longer for any sort of bullish momentum to actually start up again. And so hopefully this kind of highlights why it is so important on these type of structures to actually maintain. So once we actually do flip a very nice bullish cross on exponential moving averages, that's why it is so important that we actually do maintain and keep those levels as support, especially since looking left, they were such big, strong resistance levels here previously on this overall longer term downtrend. So the fact that now we actually did flip bullish from it, confirmed it as support, and then immediately rejected and lost this level as support just is a very clear picture of how negative the sentiment and how the bears are still very much in control of the overall crypto space right now. So despite the fact that we did have a little bit of a nice bounce here, still very much on the overall scale that we are still pulling back longer term here, and that it's probably going to be a little bit more of a drawn out and prolonged move before we actually do start to see some overall trend changing in the longer and greater crypto space. So if we do zoom out even farther, one of the things that we had been looking at, especially in the previous video, was these exponential moving averages on the weekly. So specifically, we are going to be looking at the 50-period EMA, going to turn off the 12 and 26 really quick. So we can see how previously we were looking at a very nice support level for the exponential moving average of the 50-period EMA. And once we actually broke bearish below this, did flip it into resistance here for a couple of weeks before finally flipping back bullish on top of it. And on this move right now, are still back testing it. So right now it is a good thing to actually back test a previous level of resistance. But right now we do need to see the bulls actually maintain a close on the current weekly. Still have basically about 6 days left on this weekly candle. So plenty of time for the bulls to actually defend this level, or plenty of time for the bears to actually crush this level as well. So current price right now, 9.629. We're looking at the 50-period EMA being at 9.536. So barely just above it. But yeah, overall, we do need to see the 9.536 level hold for the weekly close here, because after this nice upside move, a very characteristic spinning top doji candle here, and then with that, a pretty significant bearish volume here too, showing a lot of selling pressure on the upside with the big upper wick, and then also a pretty significant, still nonetheless, downside shadow, although not as big as the upper wick here. So we are looking very much just based on the weekly candle for that pullback, but that's why it is so essential to actually, on this weekly anyway, make sure that we do maintain a higher low and then ideally close above the support level, especially since it was confirmed as resistance and also previous support. So very relevant on the weekly candles as well. And in a perfect scenario, we would actually see either inside bars happening here or realistically a little bit more follow through and a bounce confirming off of this support level here. But so like we mentioned in the last video, because we actually broke structure here on this longer term weekly, that does make this upside and potential for a rally here that much more difficult, because now we are fighting against previous trading levels that are now being flipped into this very big resistance zone here. So for example, if we actually turn on VPVR, volume profile visible range, you can just see that that is the exact level that we did see a lot of rejection coming in. So about 12.14 cents was a pretty significant level for rejection here, looking left, big point of center of mass, and this heart line here for this big consolidation move before putting in our most recent trend high, which comes in at 18.583 cents. So yeah, on the VPVR, looking at a very, very strong point of mass right at that level, and currently seeing a lot of rejection from that point. But if we do look here on the VPVR, that's also where we're trying to actually find and get established a little bit more of that longer term support in order to actually set that weekly higher low and make another retest of this level once again after confirming a little bit more of that upside potential here. Now looking at the RSI for the weekly chart here, and the thing about it is that we're kind of toying right now with this exponential moving average. So we barely broke above it and kind of we're below it now. So if we can actually see support coming in off this 50-period EMA for the longer term and a little bit more of that follow through in the upcoming weeks here, then that could actually reverse this RSI, and then we would be starting to set the trend on top of the EMA here, which would be a better sign and of benefit for the bulls, especially if we do look at stochastic RSI here, finally made a bullish cross and started trending on top of the 20 line. And that's pretty much what we do want to see, but obviously getting rejection and resistance. If we do lose support below the 50-period EMA, this is pretty much going to be guaranteed to roll back over in that instance, along with the RSI maintaining a downtrend below this exponential moving average for the RSI. Now, if we want to talk about this weekly chart without the exponential moving averages on, very big price level here for support and also previous resistance that kind of aligned with that 50-period EMA, but specifically coming in at 9.473, or effectively we will call it the 9.57, the 9.5 cent mark. And so as we can see, very big point of support, like we said, big point of resistance. But also looking left, this mirrored up with a big point of support as well as a big point of resistance here on this weekly. So we know that despite these didn't actually line up with the 50-period EMA, they did line up with the exponential moving averages, the 12 and the 26 earlier. So very relevant points, especially matching up with exponential moving averages. And so that's why we are still keeping very much in mind not only the 50-period EMA, but the 9.5 cent price level as well. So ideally, bulls can maintain a very nice close for this weekly, would be one of the best case scenarios. And like we said, otherwise, if that does fail, then pretty much we're going to reestablish this as a big resistance point and be below the 50-period EMA, and then look actually down in that instance to defend some of these lower lows. And ideally, in that instance, wouldn't actually have a weekly close on top of the lowest support level coming in at 8.316. So if we do end up seeing fall through and break out below that 9.5 cent mark, we would need to actually see a maintaining of closing on top of 8.316. Otherwise, that would lose the structure for the weekly close as well. And then we would likely continue a longer term downtrend in that instance. So a lot of uncertainty and overall negative sentiment with the crypto space as a whole. And it's definitely no reason to see why, because once we actually do get some hope and momentum in the form of a chart that does shape up like how we saw ROSE, we do end up losing it pretty quickly without necessarily that much struggle and fight. So it is kind of disheartening to see something like that happen, especially after such an optimistic outlook from an otherwise bullish structure and pattern here. But I did make a tweet over on Twitter, a post or X or whatever you want to call it. And if you're not currently following me over here at coin_trades is the handle, definitely drop me a follow. But the point of the post is that overall, we're still seeing pretty negative and bearish sentiment and a lot of fear still coming in for crypto. But despite all that, prices haven't necessarily been super negative like as they were in an overall bear market. And this specifically refers to more or less Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, since obviously a lot of the altcoins have been getting pounded and seen significant retracements. But overall, still the fact that we are at the current levels with this type of negative sentiment does mean and provide that bullish sentiment that it is going to be coming here before too long, and that we will see a lot more higher highs, especially given the fact that with current sentiment still being in an overall position that we're in, does yield once sentiment actually changes and reverses, which it definitely will, because it can't stay this negative for this long, especially when the prices are more or less flatlining and staying choppy. So if you do have any questions, comments, issues, disagreements, all that stuff about the tweet or anything in the video for today, definitely drop me a note in the comments sections below. But otherwise, that is going to wrap up the show for today on Oasis Network, ROSE, ROSE on that ticker. Hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. But otherwise, do appreciate all the continuous love and support. As always, it does mean so much. Stay safe, take care, coin traders, and I'll catch you back in the next video.